This is Brother Cornell West, and it has been my blessing and joy to be in such high quality conversation with Brother Anthony Parker of Keeping It Honest. Make sure you never miss his show.
And welcome back again, yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander of Keeping It Honest. We don't just keep it simple, we don't just keep it real, we keep it honest. We thank you for supporting our show and being here. And of course, we're going to do things with a Parker twist. So if you watch the show, then you know what we do. If not, and it's new to you, I'm going to tell you what we do. We tell stories, we do interviews, we put things with a Parker twist. We try to get the left side, try to get the right side, and at the end of the show, hopefully you decide. You may not like what we give you, and you may be upset, but at least you know we keep it honest and give you the truth. Questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. You can text me, leave a voice message. That number is 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. Now, this is an interesting show. Right now, everybody's talking about Joe Biden, President Biden. Should he stay in the race? Should he drop out? Should Kamala Harris, should she be the president? There's a lot of people, Democrats, Republicans, who don't want her to become the president or don't want her to be in the nomination. How do you feel about that? What are the chances, and I've heard this like for a while, that Joe Biden will drop out of the race? Every day, every week, they're saying he's not going to last. You've had a lot of people who are pressuring him. Joe Biden has said, I am not going to go. We're not hearing from some of the people like Barack Obama, but there's this guy by the name of David Axelrod. He was a close friend of Obama's, and he has said he thinks that Joe Biden should drop out. So if that's one of Obama's best friends, do you think that's really Obama saying that too? So what would the scenario be if Joe Biden dropped out? Should Kamala Harris be the president? So I look at this as if you're a football player and you're the starting quarterback and you have a backup. If you have the backup's always going to support the starter, but probably inside they really want to be that starter. Do they want the starter to get hurt so they can play? Well, maybe not bad, but they do want the opportunity. So you got Kamala Harris, who's out there saying, I support Joe, but knowing that she has an opportunity to be the president, but also knowing that there's a lot of people that don't want her to be the president. So if you're a quarterback and you're the starter and you are the backup, and the fans don't want the backup, they want to get another starter, how do you feel? So how do you think Kamala Harris feels through all of this? The things that it is showing you is that Jill Biden, she loves that power. Maybe she loves it more than Joe. Because if you've seen her recently, she's pretty much a spokesperson for Joe. And even though people talk about, well, maybe he should leave because of his age, if I'm correct, there are a lot of people in Congress who are older than Joe. And some of them are doing way better than Joe. So I don't think really that it's the age. Maybe it's just, at that time, each person ages different. So is Joe able to still be in office? Because technically they're trying to get him out of office even before his term ends with some months left. What does Trump want? Well, Trump wants to win. What does Biden want? Well, Biden wants to win. So they're trying to make these sideshow deals about Biden and his legacy. And so now Biden's going on all these shows and he's trying to get now the black vote. So recently he was interviewed by BET's Black Entertainment Television, Ed Gordon. Ed Gordon's been around about 20 something years, maybe 30 years. He's a great journalist, great broadcaster. So Biden's people said, well, let's go to BET, Black Entertainment Network, get to the Black people, because it was the African Americans that helped him. And Claiborne, Representative Claiborne from South Carolina, was the one that helped push Biden over, and he won in his first term. Barely, but he won. So Biden promised, and maybe they made a side deal, that Clyburn said, hey, you know what? If we help you out, the Black community, we need you to pick somebody Black to be your running mate. And they did, and it was Kamala Harris. So now he knows it's a tough race going on. People are like talking about his ability. He sat down for this interview with Ed Gordon. None of the questions were prepared, none of this other stuff that you've heard from radio stations and everything. So on this show, we're going to talk about some of the issues that concern the Black community. They're different than the white community. Maybe some people in the African American community don't care as much as things as the total community. Money going to the different wars, why not put money in inner city? So Biden sat down with Ed Gordon, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to play it. And in between Ed Gordon asking the president some questions, we're going to see if his faculties are still the same, if they're better, or if they're worse. And here's Ed Gordon to give you a preview.
I'm Ed Gordon. Tonight, a BET News exclusive. Black America Votes, the Biden interview. Amid growing political divisions and a failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and with questions continuing to swirl around the strength of his candidacy, I sat down with President Joe Biden to specifically discuss the issues and concerns of Black voters. I'd like you to take a moment and tell Black America, why should they turn out for you? Our interview took place Tuesday in Las Vegas, where the president was in town to address the NAACP convention. None of our questions were shared in advance.
And I don't know, too, as we look at this, if Joe Biden has ever been on BET, Black Entertainment Television, but he knows that he has to get the African-American vote to continue. We can't take that African-American vote for granted. So I've got some statistics here, which I think are pretty interesting. And I'm going to go to the interview. So a recent survey of Black people, African Americans, it indicates that Black voters prefer President Biden over Donald Trump by a 4-1 margin, 78% to 18%. So whatever other surveys you hear, this is the real one. 78% to 18% Black voters prefer President Biden over Donald Trump. So younger Black voters now are tending to become more Republican. So they're trying to get the young African-American voters because they're turning more Republican. And between 83% and 86% of all Black voters have identified as Democrats. Yeah, because, you know, how many African-Americans you know out there, and they are pretty much Democrats. Because if you're an African-American Republican, you tend to take hits on that. So approval rating, this is one of the big deals. Biden had a 55% approval rating among Black voters, 46% of whom said Biden is a great or good president. So over half of that African Americans said Biden is a great or good president. So now we're going to hear his take. And what is he going to do for the Black community? Maybe that he hasn't done already, or maybe that he's done and we haven't forgot. Times are ticking. Remember, African Americans have a strong position in this election. And don't forget who they are.
Mr. President, good to sit with you.
Good to be back with you guys.
Let me ask you, let me start with your opponent, Donald Trump. He is, understatement here, an incendiary figure. Some are wondering if the assassination attempt will change him at all, make him more politically disciplined, more unifying. He says he's going to be, but many believe he won't, and you're going to have to fight fire with fire. How will you take him on from this point?
Yeah, so that's interesting. After the assassination attempt, Donald Trump's approval rating went up because a lot of people, and I've had people even on my show and my clips I've shown, they commented about how he's a godsend. Everybody knows how that bullet just, literally missed his head. There are some conspiracy theorists out there that say it was all set up, but there's also a lot of people that didn't want him before, but said, man, when he, did his thumbs up and everything, it just showed him he was an American and he's fighting for this country. Because a lot of people were kind of saying, where he's taking a bullet, Joe Biden's trying to take his foot step by step up and down the stairs. I'm just saying. So who would you vote for? How has that assassination attempt changed you? As far as your views on Trump, let's hear Biden's take.
Like I've been taking mine based on the issues. I mean, look, everybody said, I said we got to tone down the rhetoric about violence. There's no room for violence. You can't be talking about violence. You can't be saying that if I lose the election, there'll be a bloodbath, which he says. If the January 6th folks were good folks and they should be released from prison, etc. But there are serious differences we have on the issues of the future of the country. And I'm going to take them on directly.
What's his selection of J.D. Vance say to you?
It says to me that he's decided that MAGA Republican politics is going to be the future of the Republican Party.
And it's interesting because with J.D. Vance, I've done a show on J.D. Vance. And if you're not a fan of Donald Trump, then you're not going to be a fan of J.D. Vance. He comes out strong, comes out arrogant. There's a lot of issues he doesn't want to deal with. There's a lot of things that he wants to eliminate. So to the African-American public, if you were going to vote for Trump with J.D. Vance now, he's the next generation of the Republican Party 2.0. Are you willing to vote for Trump now?
And because J.D. is a great guy, but a hardworking senator, but really conservative, MAGA Republican.
You said to me before we started, everything's at stake here. Explain to people why this election is different.
Well, look, one of the things that occurred when I won, you may remember, I said I was running for 3 reasons. It was after my son was killed or died because of Iraq. And I didn't want to get involved. And then I was watching television. And I was a professor at Penn and I was watching television later. And you saw those folks come out of the fields in Charlottesville carrying torches, accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan, carrying Nazi swastikas. And a young woman a bystander was killed. And he was asked, well, tell me about what happened here, Mr. President. There were good people on both sides. That's when I decided I had to run. That's why I ran.
So I don't know if you do remember that. So that's his telling point of when he decided to run. When President Trump said there's good people on both sides. He says that was the turning point. But he also says he wants to finish the job because he's the only one that can finish it. Out of everybody in the United States, Joe Biden is the only one that can finish it. It's great that he believes that he's better than anybody. But in reality, there's a lot of people that could have run, should have run, didn't run, that maybe could finish this job too.
And I said when I ran, I was going to try to do three things. And I meant this sincerely. Restore the soul of America, the decency and honor which we usually debate. Secondly, build the middle class, build out the middle class, and when that works, the bottom does well and the wealthy still unify. And third, try to unite the country. I was told I couldn't get any of that done. And then I had 4 major initiatives that they said could never pass. They all passed. And so we're making progress. We have the most advanced economy in the world today. We got more to do. But and all of it, he says, all of it is just should be, if he's elected, he's going to get rid of. And not even, we haven't talked about foreign policy, and I know that's not on top of most people's minds, but he wants to get out of NATO. He wants to yield to Putin. He has a very different view of the world than I do.
And then, like you said, foreign affairs is not important, but what's important is taking care of our country and our people, so there won't be homelessness, so there will be more jobs. And if I'm correct, the numbers on unemployment might be 4%, but how many people have to work 2 jobs to at least have a good income? So have wages gone up? I don't think so. So people may have more jobs because they have to work to make more money. And if you realize, no matter what, whenever Biden's asked a question about him, he goes to what Trump isn't doing. And there's never really good follow-up questions. We're going to see how Ed Gordon does.
We're going to get to the economy in just a moment, but you've made it clear by now, certainly you've been asked 1,000 times, that you have no intention of getting out of this race. Yet there are those who are concerned still about your age and capability because of your age. Is there anything that you would look to, you personally, not anybody else, not other pundits, not even perhaps family members, that you would look to say, if I see that, I will reevaluate?
And that's an interesting question. So think about this as a regular job. You're at a job and you've done it for 30 years and you want to retire in 2 more years because you got about 2 more years left. But then you're going a little slower, not maybe being as productive. You want to change your hours. Instead of 8, you want 6. And you want weekends off. So people are seeing a difference in you, but are you kind of seeing a difference in yourself? Because hey, I started this job, I want to finish it. What do you do? A lot of soul searching, I guess Joe Biden is doing, because he's seeing a lot of pressure. 35 senators at least, not senators, but big politicians, they want him out, at least 35. And there's some people behind the scenes that are talking about him, whispering, and he has to go on shows like these and show, hey, I can do this. I've been doing it. I can do this. So now Ed Gordon asked him about reevaluating himself. Is this going to flip to Trump? Let's listen in.
If there has some medical condition that emerged, if the doctors came to me and said, you got this problem, that problem. But I made a serious mistake in the whole debate. And look, when I originally ran, you may remember it, I said I was going to be a transitional candidate. And I thought that I'd be able to move from this, just pass it on to someone else.
Yes, I do remember that too, because when he ran, he said pretty much he was going to be a 1-term candidate, which would, of course, maybe give Kamala the opportunity to run for president in the 4 years. But something happened. He liked the power. Joe Biden liked the power. Maybe the people behind him who were whispering in his ears liked the power. And they said, 4 more, Joe, knowing that maybe Joe can't make the 4 years. And if we do get him past the hump, he gets in office, maybe 2 of those years he can't make it. So the last 2 years, Kamala does become president. Anything can happen. But he decided, hey, I don't want to transition. I want to continue.
But I didn't anticipate things getting so divided. And quite frankly, I think the only thing age brings a little bit of wisdom. And I think I've demonstrated that I know how to get things done for the country, in spite of the fact that we thought we couldn't get it done. But there's more to do, and I'm reluctant to walk away from that.
Would you be willing to be transitional even at this point? Would you be willing to even look at the idea that if you get in, perhaps in a year and a half or 2, you would look to your, in your words, very capable vice president to carry it over the finish line?
Well, look, only if...
Let me ask you, let me start with your opponent, Donald Trump. you're, in your words, very capable vice president to carry it over the finish line?
Well, look, only if I was told that there was some medical condition that I had.
And that's it. It's a medical condition that he has. Well, right now, he's had COVID, he's had cold, and he seems to be more tired. But he's saying he has to get himself together to continue to have the energy to run.
And that's not the case. So, but I understand what people say. Look, I'm only 3 years older than Trump, okay? Yeah, I think I'm a little better physical shape than he is. The point is, though, that it's not unreasonable for people to say, wait a minute, you're 81 years old. And so I think it's a legitimate thing from the race. And as long as I get straight that it's not affecting my ability to compete, my ability to get things done, my ability to literally lead the world. Lead the world.
And it is now affecting his ability. Do you think he's an adequate candidate to continue to run and win? Because again, Ed Gordon said, well, you make it 2 years down the road, maybe you're like, I'm tired, and then you hand it off to Kamala anyway. So those are the options too. If we can make it 2 more years, and then Kamala comes, we'll do good.
World.
So you are willing from year to year to look at your health, your capabilities, and move from that place.
And do we want a year-to-year president? That's always an interesting option too. So not even just make it, finish the nomination, win, become president again, and see about how far you get into the 4 years instead of halfway there. Look into it year by year. Kamala takes it, then go from there. That's the option they're talking about too.
Well, as a practical matter, yes, but there's no reason to believe that's not going to happen.
Let's turn to the economy. You've done some very good things. Unemployment rate for Black America, the lowest in history.
Now listen to these factors right here what Ed Gordon is saying.
Black Americans starting small businesses in record numbers. With your administration, you provided $7.3 billion to HBCUs, Capital One, as you've told us, and others. But because of the wealth disparity for African Americans, there's this sense, and being Joe from Scranton, you understand this more than most. Sometimes it's very difficult, even with all of those programs, to make it day to day to day. What do you?
And if you notice, he gave those facts and figures, which are really good for African Americans, but they're still struggling. Why is that?
You tell people who are paying $6 for cereal, they can't take their kids to a movie or a ball game, memories that last with you. What do you tell them?
Well, I tell them what's happening is inflation is coming down. It is coming down. You have 16 Nobel laureates in economics saying that it's coming down. I think you're going to see, I have not spoken to the Fed. My guess is they're going to reduce rates. But what we have to do is deal with the corporate greed. What's happened here is since the pandemic, corporate profits have doubled. For example, I want to make sure that you cannot, corporations that own apartment complexes cannot raise rent beyond 5% in any 1 year, period. I want to see to it that we're going to build 20 million new homes that are affordable. That's why I'm moving to make sure that we provide first-time home buyers, particularly in African-American communities and minority communities, down payments of $10,000 to get started. That's why I've forgiven student debt. People who have met the requirement of paying off for 10 years and still have extreme debt, but when they're involved in an enterprise that is whether a teacher, a firefighter, a police officer, et cetera, that debt is forgiven. And it's changing people's lives.
All right, so the student debt, there's still some concerns on that. And if you remember, there was total confusion. He could have prevented all that when he initially said we're going to get rid of student debt, but then had to fight with Congress. But he could have just signed off on it himself. Trump was doing that with a lot of things. Biden, unfortunately, from what I've seen, only time he signed off things was Trump things, not creating his own things. And you talk about making a legacy. Home-time buyers, okay. Food prices being high. Why are we doing this now? Why weren't we doing this in the years that you were in office, because time is short and you're trying to get people to say, okay, well, he's going to do that for us. We're going to vote for him again. But then why weren't you doing it while you were currently in office?
It's changing people's lives.
Why do you think it hasn't resonated in a louder ring of the bell?
Well, I think in effect, there's about 4 million people so far. And because the Republican Party and the MAGA Republicans have been opposed to it, and they've been beaten up on it. I think that there's a lot of what we've done, Ed. For example, the infrastructure bill, fancy words for making sure we have better roads, highways, bridges, take all the lead pipes out of our homes, make sure there's access to affordable internet, just like in Roosevelt's time, back in earlier than that, making sure there was electricity and agriculture in the rural areas. That's all. It takes time for it to happen, and so it's just taking time for people to see it. And the other thing is, there's not been a very good job done about saying this new $1 billion bridge going over is brought to you by Joe Biden. This $1 billion tunnel is going to increase and reduce blah blah blah. So we're working on that, and I think, but I think it's just time.
Do you think Democrats have played the long game well? People will say Republicans play the long game better.
Well, let me put it this way. They may play the long game, but they don't do much. Look what they've done. Last administration had us in a recession when they left. Last administration, black unemployment was down. Last administration, because of the failure to deal with COVID in an honest way, 1 million people died. Last administration, we had the largest deficit of anyone in history, any one-term president. There's only 2 presidents in American history who've come to office and left with fewer jobs than they came to office. And the other was a guy we all know very well.
And I want you to investigate that statement, because Joe Biden does say that a lot of jobs, as far as Donald Trump was concerned, were lost. Well, if you remember, we had the COVID. When Donald Trump was in office, there were a lot of people getting jobs. But then COVID hit, and it took away jobs. And then when it started opening up, jobs were slowly coming up. So Biden, if COVID hit in Biden's terms, there would have been a lot of jobs lost too. Biden does use that a lot, but it's misconceiving when he says that as far as jobs gained or lost in Donald Trump's term. You can blame that on nature and the COVID virus. Could also happen to Joe Biden in his term.
I call, anyway, Trump is one of them.
When we come back, Republicans in the Supreme Court, as you know, trying to ban affirmative action, the teaching of Black history, dismantling of DE&I. How do you stand in the breach?
And you're watching yours truly, Anthony Parker, of Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly at parkerman2011gmail.com, parkerman2011gmail.com. You can leave me a text, 216-702-3718, 216-702-3718. So what do you think about the interview so far, as far as Ed Gordon asking President Biden how he feels? And like you said, there's a segment coming up. He's going to talk about some interesting things that may be uncomfortable. The Supreme Court. And I tell people before, I ran for Congress and run for office a couple of times. And there's a machine. If the machine doesn't want you in a certain spot, they'll try to place you somewhere else. There's no coincidences to anything in life. Remember that, no coincidences in anything in life. We're going to talk about the Project 2025. He's going to talk about that. I'm going to let you know a little bit more about that. He's going to talk about affirmative action in the Supreme Court justices. And Donald Trump has picked a lot of these justices, a couple of them. And you think about this. If you're a president, you're going to pick somebody who's kind of like you. So if you pick a Supreme Court justice and they're in for life, they don't get kicked out, And if you don't like that president and they pick a Supreme Court justice like them, but the president only does one term, that Supreme Court justice could be in office for about 20 years, which is maybe 5 terms for a president. So the people that Donald Trump has picked are going to be in office for a while. And what they've done, they've brought back, and it's interesting, so because I want you guys to investigate yourself. Like I said, I give you both sides of the story, but they're bringing back things that a lot of older African Americans say is going to hurt African Americans like it did when they were younger. But again, if you don't keep up with what's happening out there, then you get what you deserve. Boom. So stay up with the news. Speaking of news, you're watching Keeping It Honest with yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander, and the Biden interview on BET.
I want to ask you about your relationship with the Black voter. I think it's fair to say, in order for you to go over the top in November, you are going to have a large Black voter turnout to put you over the line to victory. And honestly, if I'm honest with you, the enthusiasm this time around is not the same as the last time you won. There is a certain disenchantment. Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta are going to be deciding factors in that 270 you've got to get to. I'd like you to take a moment and tell Black America what you want them to know. Why should they turn out for you?
And then why should people, like he says, turn out for Joe Biden? What has he done for African Americans? So now let's go to some of these poll results. In 2020, this survey, 12% of Black men voted for Trump, 12% in 2020. But overall, Biden led Trump in that election among Black voters, 92% overall to 8%. So overall, Black voters, Biden got 92%, Trump got 8%. So Black women, let's think about this. Black women now, they voted for Biden over Trump 95% to 5%. 95% to 5% Black women. 83% of Black registered voters, they identify themselves as Democrats. I thought it'd be more. While 12% are Republicans, or they lean Republicans, probably independent. But 83% of African Americans lead Democrat. Now let's go to age brackets. So 17% of Black voters under 50 either strongly lean toward the Republican Party, 17%. Now that's interesting too. Under 50 lean towards the Republican Party. And the age gap of 18 to 49-year-old Black voters, that's 20%. They would vote for Donald Trump. So 29% of 18 to 49-year-olds would vote for Trump. But older people, 50 and up, only 8% of African Americans 50 and up would vote for Donald Trump. So Biden, what can you do for the Black African American community?
Because you know where my heart is. You know where my head is. And by the way, if you notice, whether it's young Blacks or young whites or young Hispanics or young Asian Americans, they've never focused until after Labor Day. I mean, the idea they're focused intently on an election right now is not there. And by the way, if you take a look at the presidents who have won at this stage of the game, the last 7 or 8 presidents, 5 of them were losing at this time by significant margins. The point is, we're just getting down to game time now. We put together the largest volunteer organization, I think, in America. There were 2,200,000 individual contributors, small contributors, raising tens of millions of dollars for me to be able to compete. So I think you're going to be surprised at the By the way, for example, I was in South Carolina, went to going to a black home where a dad and his son were sitting at the kitchen table with him, and they talk about it. And after it was all over, his father said, no one's talked to my son like this before. No one said, you really mean it. I do mean it. I mean it. It's about why I got involved in the first place. Look, I got out of school, high school, and my state was segregated by law to its great shame in Delaware. And I got involved in the civil rights movement. No great shakes, just sit-ins, and things like that. And the end result of this was all the friends I made. For example, one of the guys who my mom talks about when Barack called me and saying he wanted to do a background check on me because he wanted to think of me as vice president. I said, I don't want to be vice president. And he said, no, there's only you and 3 others. The 2 others.
So that part is interesting because Barack had a couple other people he wanted to get as vice president. And Joe Biden at that time said, I don't want to be vice president. I want to continue to be senator. So you wonder what would have happened if Barack Obama had picked one of the other few people. So again, this is interesting, okay? In a survey back in May 2024, Biden had a 55% approval rating among Black voters, 46 of whom said Biden is a great or good president. So 46 said he was a great or good president. So let's compare that to Trump. 72 of Black voters thought that Trump was a poor president. What's the percentage of people that love Trump now? Well, we're going to have to wait to see election day and see how that is. But again, Joe Biden said he didn't want to run. He wanted to be a senator. But Barack said, I want you to be my vice president.
And I said, Barack, I don't want to be vice president. And he said, well, go home and talk about it. He knows my parents, my mom, my dad's dead. So we had a meeting. I was on the train and then going back to Wilmington. And when I got home, we sat in the back porch, called the family together. My son was alive then, my 2 sons, my daughter. The only outside other than the family member who was there was Ted Kaufman. It was my best friend and was just stepped into the senator when I got elected vice president. And so we went around the room. The porch, what do you want to do? And my wife said, you ought to do it because if you don't, he's going to ask you to be Secretary of State and you'll be away all the time. And then my son, Bo, who was Attorney General, should be sitting there, not me. And I said, Dad, you have an obligation, went through it. And so everybody made their case, and I still didn't want to do it. My mom was sitting against a railing and over on the porch, there's a story up from the foot ground. And I said, honey, you haven't said anything. She said, Joey, she said, remember when you were a kid? Remember when I called you when you got out of the race with Barack and you asked about him? He said, he's really bright. He's an honorable man. He'll make a good president. And I said, yeah, Mom, I remember that. I said, remember when you were a kid and they were desegregating Mayfield, the neighborhood we live, the neighboring neighborhood called Linfield? You were 14 or 15 years old. I told you not to go down there because there were people protesting, but you went down and you got arrested for being on the porch with a Black family. And they brought you back home. I said, yeah, I remember that, Mom. She said, remember you had that job as a lifeguard in a country club setting? You wanted to be the only white guy to work in the East Side in the projects and the lifeguard? I said, yeah, Mom. So let me get this straight, honey. The first Black man in history has a chance to be president. You told him no.
I grew up always on the bigger side as a kid. I was always slightly thicker, big bone.
Don't you hate these little commercials? Biden's pleading his case why African Americans should support him.
That's how it's always been with me in the Black community. It's the same community. By the way, one of the guys that when I was a lifeguard back then is, and I helped represent as a young public defender, is out here now. He's a major labor leader. They're my friends. They're still my friends. and they're still the ones that encourage me to move. So I think that, and one thing does change, it's not an excuse, an explanation. I would ordinarily be going through black neighborhoods on the foot, working through the neighborhoods. I have a tradition. I close every campaign, no matter what campaign, going into the projects and going down the east side. And hey, Joe, well, how you doing? You know, well, just because they're my friends, let them know I'm still there. We can't do that now. Not because of the black community, because it's too dangerous for me to be out walking around a company. So what I'm doing now is trying to keep in touch with as many of my black constituents and letting people know that I'm available. I'm available. It's a reason why I got involved in politics in the first place. Not a joke. Not a joke. Everybody deserves a shot. Everybody deserves a shot. And we've demonstrated, you give them a shot, they step up. They step up in every community. That's why the black community is doing as well as it is now. It's going to do better. We got to focus on making sure that this MAGA 25 deal that Trump has out there does not succeed.
And again, I told you with the Project 2025, make sure you look into that because Biden is saying some things, but you have to investigate it. Is it really a Trump deal? People connected with Trump are connected with the Project 2025. Maybe if Trump beats Biden, he gets in office, maybe you'll find out that Trump really does know about this 2025 project. But as of us doing this, he keeps saying he isn't. But you need to look into that yourself. Look into that, and maybe that might decide who you will vote for. Whether you vote for Trump or whoever is going to be running for president, Biden or whoever. But make sure you look into that. And when Biden said, well, you can't be out there in the community now. Yeah, because you're president. So you can't be out there like you were just walking around because you're president of the United States. These are your pleas that you're giving to the African-American community. We're going to have to wait and see how the African-American community takes what you say.
They want to wipe it all out. Look what's happening. All the folks in the black community have prescription drug problems. There's a lot of money. You have diabetes. You need insulin. $400. It's now $35. The black community, in the east side where I'm from, you're in a situation where no black American, any American over the age of 65 will have to pay more than $2,000 a year for all the prescriptions for the entire year, including cancer drugs that are $12,000, $15,000. And so it's about giving healthcare. It's about making sure there's opportunity for people to have a good education. I've been pushing that we're going to get it done. Early education. You know all the studies that are not as well as I do, that you come out of a neighborhood or a house where there's no books, where there's a dysfunctional family, where there's a problem, and you start off school, you hear a million fewer words haven't been spoken because there's not conversation. Well, guess what the studies show now? If you have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds going to early education, not daycare, education, you increase by 56% their ability to go 3. There's so many opportunities. Yeah. And I think the community is beginning to see it. At least
Okay, because I kept wondering, he asked him a question. Was he talking to black people, African-American people? When he talking, but yet rambling. Community college free, you've had a couple of years to do that. So hopefully now you're not trying to squeeze all this in because you know your term is about to end.
I hope so.
Mr. President, always good to speak with you.
Hopefully I'll be back.
Hopefully I'll be back. Something to think about.
I really mean it.
That'll be up to your folks.
It's up to me.
There you go.
Call them.
All
They
right.
say no, call
I'll
me.
take you up on it. Good to see
Thanks,
you.
Whew. What did you think? BET interview with President Joe Biden. Wow. Did he talk to the black community enough? Did you get enough out of that? Are you one way you feel, yeah, I saw this now. I know who I want to back. Your alternatives? right now or Trump. So what did you think? We did this in a Parker twist. And as of this airing now, update, President Joe Biden has decided not to run for another term. So this technically was one of the last shows and interviews that you've seen him while he was pushing to run for president of the United States. He decided to drop out and not run. We're still getting details on that. But he endorsed Kamala Harris to run for president. It's going to be interesting what's going to happen now. Is the Black community going to vote for her? He went out, one of his last interviews, and he got on BET, interviewed by journalist, award-winning journalist, great guy. Were the questions hard enough? Was it something that was lacking? Because not too long after that interview, he decided to drop out for running for his next term. So he truly is a one-term president now. But let me know how he did. I read about the percentages and everything. Would he have had a chance with Donald Trump? We'll never know now because he decided to drop out. Late breaking news. But we wanted you to see this show to get his last pleas to run for office. If you have any questions or comments, you can email yours truly. It's parkerman2011@gmail.com, parkerman2011@gmail.com. You can text me, 216-702-3718. Leave a message, 216-702-3718. Don't forget to go to our Patreon page. Our Patreon page is kind of like PBS. You go to our page. We have 3 different tiers. And it's like a fundraising page, a sponsorship page. You can sponsor our show. You see, we put a lot of work into it. And there's 3 tiers, what you want to do. Join it. We also have special initiatives on there too. Join us. Be a part of our family. As we grow, you grow. Hit the like and share button. Tell your friends. Okay? Really, tell your friends about our show. You have anything that you want to see on the show people aren't talking about, let me know. Drop me a line. We'll try to do it. We thank you for the subscribers. I love the messages, the threads that we do. I'm telling you, the conversation is really good. It takes it on another level. Check out my shorts. And when I say shorts, I mean the video shorts. Check those out. Whether it's 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, then they're long, our long, short programs. Get on my site. Check it out. Keeping it honest. Yours truly, Anthony Parker Alexander. You'll see some interesting shows. You can leave me messages for shows that you would like this one. President Joe Biden is one of his last interviews before he decided he wasn't going to run for a second term. Go back on this, look at this, see if he said anything where it was like, I wouldn't have voted for him, or wow, I wish I would have. So now we're going to see if Kamala Harris is going to be on BET and how is she going to get out there. And is she going to get the Black vote, the Black women vote, the Black men vote? She could possibly be the first Black female president. She was the first Black female vice president. And will society want her to even be on that ticket? Will it be her against Trump? Crazy times ahead. Remember, use us as cliff notes. You may not like what we do. At the end of the day, hopefully you will respect us and let us know how we're doing. So we thank you for supporting our show. I'm Anthony Parker. Keep your head up. Never look down. Always believe in yourself. And therein will lie your answer. We don't just keep it. We keep it all the way. We just keep keeping it. We don't keep it simple. Really. We don't keep it real. Really. We keep it honest. God bless.